بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to everyone. We want to welcome all of you here to Masjid al-Aqsa here in Harlem. We're going to formally begin our program for this morning by asking the Imam of Masjid al-Aqsa, Imam Suleiman Konate, to come forward and to offer the welcome to us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, before anything, we're going to recite, inshallah, opening chapter, bi'iznillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. So inshallah ta'ala, we welcome inshallah the Honorable Rebo Kenny and all of you inshallah ta'ala in Masjid Aqsa. Ahlan wa sahlan, had they say in Arabic. So alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. So as we know, we did, on behalf of Association of African Imams. Also, on behalf of Alam Shura and big African community also, we welcome the Honorable Rebel W. Kelly, inshallah, in Masjid Aqsa, especially in Masjid Aqsa, also in village of Harlem. Thank you very much, sir, for being here among us. Thank you very much. Because this forum is to improve the relationship between African community in general and the police department of New York. Because as we know, Honorable Rebel Kelly always been a good friend of immigrants, good friend of Africans, and a good friend of all New Yorkers. So because of that, we know that also is the mayor of community. So it's here for all of us. Because of that, we invite him here today. So thank you for all of you for being here. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, inshallah. So inshallah, Imam Tariq will introduce Honorable Rebel Kelly, inshallah, Imam Fadal, so we can start with our program, inshallah. I know that about people are coming, bismillah ta'ala, inshallah. Shukran.
Okay, so we wanted to take a moment right here just to do some general introductions. We thought that the format that we would follow this morning would be to have general introductions and then to allow the Commissioner Kelly, to make any kind of general opening statement that he might want to make. And then we have some specific questions we wanted to put to the Commissioner for his response. And then after that, to open the floor up for any follow-up questions that any of you might have. And so with that, let me first introduce myself. I'm Imam Talib Abdul Rashid. I'm the Imam of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood here in the village of Harlem. I'm also the Amir or the leader of the Harlem Shura, which is a coalition of Harlem-based imams right here in the village. And I have the task of being your moderator for this morning. And we would ask for the imams and also any officials of the police department, other than Commissioner Kelly, we all know him, to please introduce yourselves so that we'll have an idea of who's here, and then we'll proceed from there. So we'll just start right here, Imam, and we'll straight along. Imam Umar Abdul Masjid Sport, Secretary General of the Harlem Council of Imams.
Imam of Masjid Ali Cross.
So, I am Imam Abdullah, Imam of the Islamic Cultural Center in Bronx.
Doug Ziegler, Chief of the Community Affairs Bureau.
From the Apple Family Circle Islamic Community and General Secretary of the Malik Shabazz Human Rights Institute.
Working as a liaison.
Yeah, certainly, I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but certainly I want to publicly thank the police commissioner who has given me a tremendous opportunity to work with the department in promoting police community relations. And those of you who know this commissioner, as I know, for over 20-something years, he has been a person who has always cared for the conscience of the community. He worked with me in my days of an activist in cleaning up the block, and he sat down and checked the cars and things of that nature. And I fought with him vigorously, but at the end of the day, he was the first precinct commander that really tried to improve relationship between communities in Brooklyn, which actually elects mayors and throws mayors out of office. And he worked very closely with me and the community in Brooklyn. And then when he left, he introduced me to his brother. And the brother, we established a community scholarship program that has given over $750,000 in direct scholarship to communities throughout the city of New York. Commissioner Kelly is not just a police commissioner, but I know from firsthand that he's always cared for people and tries to do the right thing. So I'm here to, this new capacity that has appointed me, not to fight with him because he's my boss, to certainly help him, and those of you all in the community to knowing that he didn't appoint me just to be there, but he appointed me because he feels there has to be an effective partnership between the community and the police department. So really, on behalf of my little self, I thank you publicly and personally for your support.
Capacity that has appointed me, not to fight with him because he's my boss, to certainly help him, for those of you all in the community, to knowing that he didn't appoint me just to be there, but he appointed me because he feels there has to be an effective partnership between the community and the police department. So really, on behalf of my little self, I thank you publicly and personally for your support and your friendship. Thank you, Commissioner.
Community coordinator and for the citywide Muslim outreach program, and also Sadiki gave a long speech, so I'm going to cut it. I'm going to say thank you for being part of the NYPD family. I was the first person to be hired as a civilian to the Community Affairs Bureau under the community coordinator job, and we've been working side by side with the communities, and thanks for all our imams to be attending here today. And sometimes, I miss the names, so Imam Talib, being a big brother to me, thank you for giving us this opportunity for tonight here. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so we're going to move right along. And first we'll have just a few general comments from Commissioner Kelly, and because we want to maximize the time that we have for both specific and general questions for him so that we can take advantage of his presence this morning. I did want to say that we who are imams, we were contacted by Imam Konate, and he expressed to us that he wanted to invite the commissioner to come here to Masjid al-Aqsa, and he asked us what we thought of it, and we told him that we think that it's a good idea. Policing in New York City is a very difficult job, and these are difficult times. We know that there's a lot of tension in the community now as the result of the shooting of Sean Bell and other incidents. And so we thought that this is the perfect time to keep the dialogue going, to keep talking with the commissioner, to have him to talk with us. And so we're glad to welcome him here this morning. And once again, Commissioner Raymond Kelly.
Well, good morning. I want to thank Imam Konate for inviting me this morning. This is one of the continuing series of visits that I've been making throughout the city to mosques in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan and next to the Bronx. So it really is an honor for me to be here. I trust you all had a pleasant festival, and those of you who have returned from Hajj, I hope you had a wonderful and a blessed trip. The New York City Police Department has done an awful lot to learn about the many aspects of the Islamic culture. We have to do that. That's our job. It's our job to learn to know about this great city. I would submit the greatest city in the world, and the most diverse city in the world. It is the right thing for us to do, and it's the smart thing for us to do, because it helps us provide services in a more effective manner. Some of you were at our pre-Ramadan conference in September in police headquarters. We had that conference again to continue our dialogues, and it was a very direct discussion at that conference, and to make certain that the holy season is indeed a safe one. Erhan has introduced himself. I was going to introduce him. He's been a very valuable addition to the department. We're from Aqsa Mosque, right, in Brooklyn. And he's just a dynamo. He's been very, very helpful and reinforcing strong relationships between the police department and the growing Islamic community in the city. Many cultural aspects of the Islamic religion. We call it Islam 101. I think some of you may have seen portions of that tape. We've amended it. I think it's an effective teaching tool for our officers. Now, this is on top of all of the classroom training that we give in the normal course of keeping our officers informed and educated as to the many diverse communities that we have in our city. Next week, we'll have all of our community affairs officers down to police headquarters again, in a continuing effort to keep them informed and keep them educated as to the diverse aspects of our city. And Airham will be speaking next week for them. We have a program now that we're just about to implement, where patrol officers from every command that has a significant Muslim population will go to the mosque in those commands prior to their tour of duty. This actually was recommended by the imam at one of my previous meetings, so we're implementing that program on a citywide basis. We will shortly be bringing on board a Muslim chaplain department. We had one, Imam Hashim. He left us last year. He did a great job, and we've been conducting interviews, and believe that we'll have a chaplain on board probably within the next 2 to 3 week period of time. We have 52,000 employees, and we are becoming a lot more diverse, and I'll mention that in a moment and tell you about some of our police academy classes. Quick reference to what's going on in the street, so to speak. We say that we're governed by 3 C's, the 3 things that are 3 missions that you might say that we have in the department. And that is crime suppression, counterterrorism, and building strong relationships with our community. As far as community affairs is concerned, we're making, I think, more strides, more effort than ever before to get closer to the community that we serve. It's just the smart thing for us to do. And these meetings are part of that, but there's a lot more going on throughout the department, throughout the city. We can talk about that in the question and answer session. As far as crime suppression, it's a success story in this city. Crime is down 22% over the last 5-year period since September 11th. Homicides are down every year. Mayor Bloomberg's administration, we've had less than 600 homicides. The first time that's happened in the city. The lowest rate since the early 60s. In 1990, we had 2,245 homicides in the city. Last year, we had 590. So the number has gone down significantly, and we hope to continue that move in the right direction. As far as counterterrorism is concerned, everyone's world changed as a result of September 11th. We had to do more to protect the city from another terrorist attack, and we have the most robust, comprehensive counterterrorism program any city, certainly in America. We brought on experts from the federal government to help us in that regard. We have people from top educational institutions in the country, analysts, to help us go through information and disseminate information to our officers in the field. We have our detectives in 10 cities throughout the world. Get us any information that can help us better protect New York. You may see increased uniform presence at significant infrastructure locations throughout the city. It's our Operation Atlas, we call it. uniform officers are assigned to protect locations that are of particular concern to us. What we say to people is, since everyone's world changed as a result of September 11th, we ask you to look at your world through the prism of September 11th. If you see anything of a suspicious nature, call our counterterrorism hotline. You can call 311. We'll connect you to that hotline. You have to remember long numbers. But again, anything that you deem to be of a suspicious nature, looking at the world as a result of the events of September 11th, we ask you to call our 311 hotline. We also want your help as far as bias crimes are concerned. If you know of anyone, or you yourself, or anyone that comes to you and complains that they're being harassed or they're a victim of crime because of their religion, because of their ethnicity, because of their lifestyle, it's something that we want to know about. And we have a very effective hate crimes task force that has an excellent track record of investigating crimes of this nature and putting people who engage in that sort of conduct behind bars. We have a new immigrants unit that works for Chief Ziegler. As I say, this is the most diverse city in the world, and our population is constantly changing. People are coming from all over the world, and they're coming to a new environment, and it can be a somewhat unsettling experience. We understand that. So Doug Ziegler's people reach out to these new immigrant communities, try to help them learn about the city, learn about the police department, obviously. And one of the lessons that we put out is that we, the police department, we are not an immigration agency. We're not enforcing immigration laws. We want people who are the victims of crime, people who need police services to come forward to us and not be concerned about their immigration status. And that is a message I would ask you to help put out in the community. Not the role, not the function of the police department, and indeed the police department personnel should not be asking questions as to someone's immigration status. We are here to help, and we do need information. We need information if someone is victimized by crime, irrespective of their immigration status. So I urge you to have them come forward if in fact they are victimized, or they need any sort of help from the department. Because of our increasing diversity in the department, we have really significant internal language schools, language skills, language that you may be surprised that we have in the department. For instance, we have personnel that speaks, some of the languages of Nigeria, of Ethiopia, of Ghana. We have that type of expertise in the department. So someone should not be concerned that if we come forward, then we're not going to be able to communicate. It might take us a while to get that person in position to communicate, but we can do it. We have a language line in all of our precincts where you can go in and they have the ability to connect you to a central location that's able to translate virtually any language that is spoken on a common basis in this country. But we have a lot of talent. We have a lot of skills. And I want to make certain that people who need them are aware of them. We've done our own demographic study. We know that the census data is not always the most reliable. We're aware of the changing nature, the dynamic nature of the city in which we live. A couple weeks ago, we had a meeting right in the New York State office building up here on 125th Street with vendors. And many of the vendors are from West Africa. There's a lot of confusion about the vending regulations, the issues about licensing. We had that meeting along with the Department of Consumer Affairs. So we do everything possible to make certain that new immigrants, or people who may be somewhat confused about the complex array of laws and regulations that we have in our city, are made aware of them. And again, we want to always promote the dialogue. Let me tell you a little bit about recruiting, something that I'm proud of. We want a department, and we are doing everything we can to get a department that better reflects the community that we serve. It's just, again, the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing for the police department to do to help us better serve the people of the city. The last 5 police academy classes, and we just swore in another group of recruits yesterday, but the last 5 police academy classes have been 50% minority or better. And that's, I think, a major accomplishment, certainly. I know something that the mayor is proud of. If you know anyone who has an interest in becoming a member of the department, it's really easy to get information how to do that. You can call telephone number 212-RECRUIT, area code 212-RECRUIT, or you can go to the website www.nyc.gov/NYPD. All the information, preliminary information, is there on the website. So I know that we all share a desire to have a department that has strong relations with the community. That we have a desire to have a city that is safe. We have a desire to have a department that best reflects the community that we serve. So I ask your help in these matters. Again, if you see anything of a suspicious nature, call our hotline. If you know anyone who is interested in becoming a police officer, you get all the preliminary information you want on our website or calling 212-RECRUIT. With that, let me stop and open it up to any questions that you might have, but thank you very much for inviting me.
Once again, we want to welcome some of those imams who have come in. For those of you who need to be able to identify this meeting, you should consider this a meeting with continental African and African American imams from Upper Manhattan, the Harlem region, and also from the Bronx. We have 5 specific questions that we want to direct towards Commissioner Kelly for his response this morning. And after he has responded to those 5 questions, then if we have a few minutes after that, we'll open the floor up for general questioning from yourselves. Commissioner, over the past 8 years or so, the worst incidents of members of the NYPD shooting and killing unarmed civilians have certain things in common. One of those things is that, and let's try to all turn off our cell phones if people please. One of those things is that the victims have consistently been young black men. 2 of the worst shootings over this period of time have involved victims who were unarmed, West African, Muslim immigrants. And of course, we're speaking of Amadou Diallo and Ousmane Zongo. So our first question for you, sir, is if you would please comment, now that we have the benefit of a few years having passed by, hindsight and so forth, if you would please comment on the shootings of Amadou Diallo and Ousmane Zongo, both of whom have relatives who worship in this very mosque, both from the official NYPD position and also any additional insight that you might be able to offer as a veteran police commander.
Well, I'm not in a position to comment on the Amadou Diallo shooting. I wasn't police commissioner then. I wasn't even in New York then. As far as the Zongo shooting, it was a terrible tragedy, no question about that. The officer involved was tried and convicted. Policing is a complex business. It involves split-second decisions. And we are looking at our training. We believe that we have the best training possible, best firearm training possible. Indeed, our police academy just received accreditation for our training, the first big city police academy in the nation to receive an accreditation by the Commission on Law Enforcement accreditation. It's a 4-year process, and this was just completed, and we've been accredited in 182 distinct areas. Be that as it may, we don't have all the answers. After this last shooting, Sean Bell shooting, some questions arose as to whether or not the training that we're doing is adequate, sufficient. We have engaged the RAND Corporation, a major organization that has been involved in examining government issues for 60 years. They have a center for quality policing that's been in existence for 30 years. We have engaged them to take a comprehensive, clean sheet of paper look at our training, our firearms training practices, including the phenomena called contagious shooting, where one officer shoots and then as a result of that sort of validates the situation and other officers shoot. Probably have not done enough research in that regard. We also asked them to look at our firearm discharge review process. How do we internally examine ourselves when firearms are used? So we're looking for that report to come forward in about a 6 month period of time. I'm really not in a position to say anything more about the Sean Bell shooting because that information is, or evidence has been gathered, is being gathered, and will be presented to a grand jury in Queens. So we hope that our training is the best that it can be, but we're certainly open to any changes that are recommended or seem to be needed as a result of the study of the commission.
Next 2 questions are actually related to this last one and in areas that you've already opened, Commissioner. The next question is, what changes, if any, in NYPD policies and procedures have been implemented since the time of the Diallo killing and the Zongo killing in order to ensure that these sort of things won't happen again?
Well, as far as the Zongo shooting is concerned, there were some administrative issues that have been addressed as far as execution of warrants. There was a unit from Staten Island that came to Manhattan and executed a warrant. We have tightened up those administrative proceedings as far as uniforms that have to be worn or proper identification procedures that are required when warrants are being executed. The other changes, there were changes that were made in the department. They've been pretty much institutionalized, and I don't have them in front of me. But policing is a learning experience. We learn every day. It's, as I say, a very complex business. As far as the Zongo shooting, yes, we have made administrative changes.
And you mentioned training. Have there been any changes in training so far since, again, that period of the late 90s and in the aftermath of Zongo?
We have instituted a tactical training course at the range. It is a 3-day training course for officers that are, let's say, more likely to encounter armed situations. Individuals who are armed can very well receive. We're going to continue that training, and there is more specific training for our officers in organized crime control, which is narcotics and vice. So yes, there have been changes. There always will be changes. We're always refining and strengthening our training regimen. We'll wait and see, as I said, as to whether or not there are significant recommendations coming forward as a result of the RAND study.
One of the questions, a frequent question that came up from the West African Muslim congregations is the fact they describe the problem that for many of them, English is a third, or in some cases, a fourth or fifth language after French and several other languages. And so this raises a great concern in the community that perhaps civilians are given direct orders by officers that they really don't understand. And so in turn, that causes them to be hesitant or not to move as quickly as the officer would want for them to move, and that tragedy might be the result. So the question is, has the NYPD contemplated any kind of on-the-ground initiatives as far as language is concerned? French or languages that are commonly spoken amongst the West African population?
Yeah, we have tried to sensitize patrol officers in our police academy training as to the diversity of the city and many, many languages that are spoken. So it's something that we clearly try to make patrol officers aware of. But more specifically, as I said before, we have a language line that's available in every patrol precinct. You can walk in there, you can get on a phone, the officer can get on a phone, the two phones are connected. It goes to a center that's the 24-hour-a-day center in California, able to speak virtually any known language. We ourselves internally have identified our own language skills. And what we've done is we've taken those folks who claim to speak a particular language, we've sent them to Berlitz, where they receive a rating, so we know what they're able to speak. As I say, we were able now to identify people who speak some of the languages spoken in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, in Ghana. Certainly, we have many French speakers in the department. We have Pashto, Urdu, Hindi speakers. I'm amazed at the language skills and talents that we have in our department. But your issue that you bring up is a confrontation at 2 o'clock in the morning. How do we communicate? We can ultimately communicate, but it's that initial confrontation that you're concerned about. And we do in our training sensitize officers to the fact that, hey, we're working in the most diverse city in the world. And you have to be aware of the possibility that people don't understand.
We got about 20 more minutes. At this time, we want to open the floor up generally for questions that any of you might have. If you have a question and you're in need of translation of your question into English, don't be shy. You can still ask the question and we'll translate it for you. So let's take our first question from Imam.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah, this question is about ourselves. Because as we know, law is to protect sisters. And Islam also is there to protect the woman. So what happened today in our society as Africans is that, most of our sisters don't speak no English. They are ignorant. So, since we are new immigrants to this society, what happened is that sometimes the meaning of freedom, these sisters don't know anything about, the meaning of freedom. Because they kind of abuse their relationship with their husbands. So what happened is that anything, for no reason, they will call 911 that my husband has got knife, he's trying to kill me, he's trying to do this to me. And police, officers will come and take away the brother for nothing. So can we do to stop that? Because, as imams in our society, we've been seeing that a lot. So when we go talk to the sisters about this problem, they don't have nothing to say. For no reason, you don't want your husband, let him go. You don't lie, you don't call police that you got gun or knife or trying to kill me or do this to me. Because if you do, the brother will be in big trouble. Especially most of us don't have the green card. After you finish, with jail or whatever, with the court, they will send you back home. And they do that, that they can send us. I want the police to take a note of that, so found a solution how we can deal with a situation like that. Thank you.
If I understand your question, it's that there are complaints of domestic violence. The police will respond and make an arrest and take, in most cases, the husband away. Well, we have moved in the last several years to a must-arrest policy because we had, prior to that, a history of police not making arrests where women have been assaulted, have been abused, and it's been looked on in years past as, well, that's a matter between husband and wife. We are not going to be involved. Well, a lot of women have been seriously injured and killed as a result of that approach years ago. So we changed that. But we have a mandatory policy where arrests have to be made if in fact there is an assault. Now I understand there may be some cultural differences here, but the fact of the matter is we have our regulation, we have a body of law that we are enforcing. So we have a must-arrest policy in domestic violence situation where there is assault, where there is an injury. The wife can ultimately in court perhaps refuse to press charges, but the department itself, we can't be in a position where we see what appears to be a crime having taken place and not take action.
Also, I remember, Commissioner, I was in police department training once, and they made the point that some of the most difficult calls for officers to respond to are domestic speech. So we're very sensitive to that. And we want to keep the questions moving. We can go now to Imam Muhammad Haji.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Commissioner Kelly, for the opportunity to address you. And in the spirit of assuring mutual consultation, I'm sure that we can move forward with a better relationship, improving relationship with the department. I have a particular question concerning at your pre-Ramadan event. I had a chance to ask some of the questions to the one I'm raising now that had to do with one, you're already addressing, it seems, the issue of the chaplain, Miss Chaplain. And also, I heard you make some comment about the improvement in the video that was wanting in certain areas. And my other question was about your policies on community policing. And I did write a letter to you on the 15th or so of September. The event took place on the 13th. And now we're getting into January and I still don't have a response. Now the letter asked for some, not just asked for what other policies and some description. And now since I'm hearing some of the things that you said that there may be some improvement on, I still would like a response to the letter. I'm also suggesting, and I'm not quite sure what format this would take place, that there is some periodic newsletter or discussion with what's happening in terms of the improvements in policies, improvements of procedures, and there seems to be a certain amount since the time in September, a great improvement to now, but we don't know. We have no way of knowing what those things are, and to see how that can be annual report or whatever format you decide.
Let's look at that. I think that's a valid suggestion. As far as your letter is concerned, last year was a record year for us in terms of correspondence. In my office, we got 30,000 pieces of email. So it's very difficult to respond to all of that mail. You'll get an answer. I'll tell you that, but it's just not easy to do with that volume.
And just a follow-up on that. In some places, they have a person who, even if they're not going to address the specific issues of the letter, will then say, we have received your communication, and that has been forwarded to so-and-so, and you can expect a response within the timely.
All right, I got it.
Thank you,
But as far as the yes, as I said, there are issues that we mentioned with the chaplain. We anticipate bringing on board a chaplain in the near term. movie has been adjusted based on the recommendations that came out of that stuff. And other means of
In regards to the, I don't want to take too much time. In regards to the selection of the chaplain, my understanding is that for the selection of chaplains, whether it's the Jewish community or the Protestant community, that there's a body, for instance, the Jewish Board of Rabbis, they make certain recommendations, and then, of course, the person serves at your pleasure, and you can choose. I'm just wondering how the community, Islamic community, feels if there should be some recommendations from our community to you, from which you may be able to.
You did receive letters recommending several individuals, not talking about the Jewish Board of Rabbis. Our Jewish chaplain is Rabbi Alvin Cass. I picture my office myself in the police academy receiving an award. Rabbi Cass is in that picture. He was a chaplain when I was in the police academy. So we haven't had much input from a board recommending Jewish chaplains.
Well, please consider
chaplain for 40 years.
Please consider that even this august body of imams that they may have a selection they want to recommend.
We've received several letters, and we have engaged with several imams.
Thank you very much.
My name is Ben Fofana. I'm the first treasurer of UAC, and I happen to be the person who connected our religious leaders to the police department. But we have had since then good communication between our Imam Konate and the police department. But still, there are concerns that we revealed to you, the last police commissioner, that still remain. One is a communication between our people with our officers on the field. Whenever there is a conflict and the police is called, conflict between an English-speaking person and one of ours who does not speak English, the police tend to condemn or take part of our people. So I would like to know what the police commissioner is going to do about it, and also what can we do when such case happens.
Than what you told me. I think you told me after the event that you give us the specifics as to where it happened and when it happened. I think there's a little more to that story than so. I think what you're highlighting is there are some language difficulties and language challenges that we have. We're trying to address them, but quite frankly, on the street, day-to-day operations, we're going to have it. So we ask our officers to be sensitive to the issue that we're able to communicate oftentimes with the people that we encounter, to be aware of that issue, and to call inside the department to get the ability to take someone to the station house, have them get on that language line that I spoke to about, or have our own personnel respond to speak the languages. But again, this is an issue for us. We understand that the population is changing in the city. We're trying to keep it.
But my question is not just language,
Yeah.
because the person in question speaks very well English. It is a sensitive one that is a matter of discriminating against one that speaks differently and who is identified as being foreigner or African, or so it is very subtle, and it happens all the time, Commissioner.
I understand your point. We are, because of the nature of what the police department does, or any police department does, we are going to have some conflict. That's just the reality. We arrest people. We give summonses. We're the bearers of bad news. We use force. Sometimes use deadly. So there's always going to be, unfortunately, some friction in certain areas. We have a civilian complaint review board. There's an apparatus in place where people who feel aggrieved can call and make a complaint through the 311 system. We're not like most other agencies because of the nature of what we do. We are going to get complaints. We are responsive to those complaints after they're properly investigated. Being a cop is a difficult job in any city, but particularly here. And I'm amazed at the good work that they do day in, day out.
Are we perfect?
No.
Do we make mistakes? Sure. Everybody does. We have an apparatus in place that enables us to address those mistakes when they're made. So I would submit to you that in this case, I would have someone make a complaint to the Complaint Review Board if they feel aggrieved.
Commissioner, we have a question that's a follow-up to the vendors meeting that occurred.
Yes, good morning. I am Chico Onyani. I'm the chairman of Celebrate Africa Foundation. And I was responsible for the meeting that took place on the 13th of December at the State Office building. And I just wanted to say, not everything that we discuss here is all negative, because since we met with Chief Ziegler, I have to commend him for arranging the meeting with the African Street Vendors Association, and it was a very, very successful meeting. And already we are beginning to get results with the kind of courtesy that are being extended to the street vendors. They are reporting back to us that about the different kinds of courtesy that the police is extending to them. So, as I said, we commend Chief Ziegler and his team for that meeting. It was a very, very successful meeting between the police department and the African Street Vendors Association. So we really appreciate that for what he did for us. But having said that, everybody has expressed the disappointment of the African community. I know that the police department, there were certain things that were promised to the African community that have not taken effect. One of those, of course, the language that everybody has talked about, how the police was going to establish a specific department that will be able to use to address the issues of language differences between Africans and police officers. I don't know whether that has been addressed, but given the problem that we continue to encounter, I think we are still having that problem. And the other one was the question of appointing some Africans into your department to liaise with the African community. I know that Siddiq told me that he has been appointed a liaison, I don't know. We thank you for that, but we need more Africans. We don't just need one person, because one person cannot do the whole job. We need more people to be appointed so that they can liaise. We have 53 African countries, and each country has a group in the New York area. So one person cannot do everything, cannot liaise with all those communities. But as I said, we thank you for appointing somebody, and we thank you also for Chief Ziegler, making Chief Ziegler available to address us and to begin to address our concerns, especially with the Street Vendors Association. But at the same time, we need more Africans, to be in your department, not only in terms of liaison with the community, but at the same time, in terms of policing, we need more Africans to be appointed into the police department.
Couldn't agree more, and that's why we have had such an aggressive recruiting campaign. However, it's important to note that you have to be a U.S. citizen to become a police officer. So I think in terms of our new communities, our new immigrant communities, that's proven to be a bit of a challenge. But as we move forward here, I think that that will change. But again, Sadiq is on board. That's a start. We'll see where we go from here.
Commissioner, just want to follow up. I remember a few years ago in meetings with some of the police department's community affairs people. One of the things that we suggested, and maybe we need to just send this to you in writing so that we can follow up, and that is that the imams of the community be given the opportunity to partner more in an official way with the police department, community affairs, and others. As you know, myself and Imam Abdul Jalil and a few others, we're bridge people. You know, we have law enforcement association. We're in the African and African American community. So we know how key the pastors and priests are in terms of liaison between community and police department. This hasn't happened yet with the continental African community. Most people, when they have problems, they either call the police or they call their imam. That's the dynamic there. And so the question is the NYPD open to specific orientation for imams and Muslim congregational leaders as far as orientation and training with regards to police procedures?
Sure. But I would personally say that most precinct commanders know 75% of the imams in their precinct. That's just how we do business these days. That's where the relationship lies. I'm sure you know your precinct commander. I'm sure the imams know the name of the precinct commander. There's been a fair amount of dialogue. It's not perfect. So that's the vehicle that we've been using for the last several years. We hold precinct commanders accountable to as far as their relationship with the religious leaders in the community. So that is a vehicle to use to keep the communication going back and forth. And as far as specific training is concerned, we can always set that up through community affairs. We welcome that opportunity. If there is that sort of demand for it, we'll clearly do it. But I just want to emphasize the fact that probably the major point of contact for most people is their community affairs officer and their precinct commander. Precinct commanders in this day and age are very sensitive to that issue, who they should be communicating.
When there is a connection between an institution such as the NYPD and the community, which is a nascent community. We are a new immigrant community which is struggling, which is trying to build itself. CDY has been in the forefront of trying to help this community to build its capacity. So we probably want also to be aware, in line of the items that we enunciated earlier, how can the community be resourceful and helpful to the NYPD, vice versa. We know that we have also been in the forefront, especially the Imam knows about it, in helping the NYPD cooperate for our own sake as well in terms of counterterrorism and all those things. We also wanted to be able, in terms of building our own capacity, to know more about the resources that are available and accessible to the NYPD for our families, for our children, and also how can we generally help you consolidate this relationship.
Well, I think that Sadiq is one vehicle to do that, but our precinct, our department is structured for dialogue, for communication, and probably working with our community affairs offices in local command is the easiest way to get a dialogue and keep it going. That's what their job is. As far as the resources that are available, not quite certain I understand that, but in terms of you want a particular briefing on, say, what we're doing for counterterrorism is concerned, you can get that through Sadiq. We'll set it up. We'll send people from our counterterrorism bureau. We want New Yorkers to know what we're doing. We want to communicate on a local basis. All of our community affairs officers, by the way, have a program, have a computer program, a PowerPoint program that tells the community what we're doing as far as our counterterrorism is concerned. So maybe we're not doing an adequate job of letting people know that that's where the resources are. That's where you get this information. But I think, as a cut to the chase situation, you can go right to Sadiq and line up any briefings that you or your community.
I'm going to take two last questions. I see the hands. I got it.
I also had in mind just to follow up basic services, such as health, children's services.
Let me just help the commissioner on that. Those of us who are members of the Association of African Imams, one of the things that the commissioner is making reference to, and I want to just help the cultural understanding here, he's making reference to the fact that the city administration is not just a hierarchical administration, but rather that over the years, as a way of bridging these gaps, that a lot of authority has been passed to the precinct commanders to deal with those houses of worship that are in their individual precinct. So one of the things that we'll work on in the association, and we'll contact Brother Sadiq Y and some others, we'll work on setting up some training and some orientation. This is what I was referring to before, to help filter the information down to you, because it sounds like what we really need is an increase in contact, communication, and work on the precinct level with the precinct commander. I'm hearing that very clearly, and that will help address some of these concerns that we might have. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to be the guy who's looking at my watch.
Thank you. My name is Mohammed Hussein. I'm the chairman of the African Congress. I thank Imam Konate and the Association of the African Imams for making this forum possible. And Commissioner, thank you for coming to listen. You've heard an earful, and that's true because that's a travail that every African American and African immigrants face every day here. And the first step in helping to solve this problem, of course, is the dialogue. And that first step is listening. And thank you for listening, because this will lead to better communication and understanding. And in that regard, actually, you couldn't have made a better appointment than appointing Mr. Sadiq Y to help in this effort, because this city needs healing. And as we know, honestly, many Africans feel under siege. The presence of police creates some kind of fear in many people. I would like this forum to start an effort to change that paradigm and make the police presence be a source of comfort and protection to the community rather than a threat. And I appreciate you listening to this. I would like to ask you, Commissioner, how would you, us, the community here, be part of this to help you in implementing some of the, new, efforts you have been making in this regard? is there any way we can all be part of this process? Is the line of communication going to remain open rather than just a meeting in a forum like this and let things go back to status quo?
Well, I have several meetings like this, by the way. This is certainly not the first one, will be the last. But I think that's a valid point. I think maybe with Chief Ziegler and Sadiq White might look to construct a vehicle where we can get ongoing input from the imams throughout the city. It makes sense to me. Now I think we have the channel to do that. So we'll look directly at that.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mamadou Kane. I'm the president of the United African Delivery Driver Association. Morning, Mr. Commissioner. We have met so many times, and thanks to be here again. I have 3 issues to raise out today. I believe we went over some of them already before. And also Chief Ziegler last time when we had a meeting in the 96th Street. Ever since then, my driver had brought some issues to me. So ever since '94, I was trying to get up to do this association, but I couldn't find a way until you came to the office. But it's take 2 people to lead me to you. Which one I came to Imam Konate, took me to Siddiqui White, Siddiqui took us to you. And I really appreciate the effort you put on our community. We as an African, we really feel a part of the New Yorker life when New York come in the office. Ever since Julian was there, I was trying hard, but we didn't get it anyway. By the way, the first question is, Suleiman Konate, he is in charge of all African Muslim religious situation to here to the law. So when we have a community problem, we come to Imam Konate. He do the best he can. Which one is concerned to the Congress before Siddiqui been appointed. So we always go to Siddiqui when he's come something between us and the police department or the law. And they've been there. And they say in Mandingo, when the wind blow, everybody hold their hat. So, and my concern is my drivers. So, we all know the African community here, even Imam, we have some Imam who's driving cab. So I am a part of the cab driver too, and I'm a cab driver and I'm the president of the Cab Driver Association. We are concerned of some issues on the community. We raised that up so many times, which one concerned. The relationship between the driver on the street and the police department. For example, if the officer pull over the driver, the way you approach him to the driver and the world, the way the world going to be exchanging, we forget. So we are from 2 different continents. The culture are different. The language are different. The way we operate is different. The age is very important in African society. When the young police officer pull you over, he could be your son or your daughter age. They talk to you certain kind of ways, get you offended. And that's one of the parts got to be really watching by the higher people like yourself, the really educated officers in the street, in the uniform, how to approach the different community people. Because the world, they say in Mandingo, when you come to the door, you see the young man sitting on the ground playing, you ask him, hey, where's your mother husband? That doesn't sound right. But if you ask the young boy, is your daddy home? He'd be more than happy to say, yes, my dad is right there. But they both are the same meaning. You know what I'm saying? What I'm trying to say there is how to approach to individuals and talking to them from the first place. And make everything easier. Me, myself, the language barrier is very important. I never have a problem with the police, any officer, because I can explain myself very well. That's one. And the second, in the busy commute, morning commute, evening commute, we are the one who is picking up people from point A to B around the city. We get a call in a busy area, you come to wait for the passenger before they come out, the police come. If some of them even tell you to move, they give you the ticket. We are a part of the community. We are serving this community like everybody else. At least they could talk to the driver, tell them go around, then come back. Then we are working together. So those are the issues I would like to raise today for my people to look at.
Well, I think the issue raised is one of sensitivity. It's something that we spoke about before. We constantly try to sensitize officers to the communities that we serve. A lot of times there's two sides to every story. And if people do feel aggrieved, there is a civilian complaint review board process. It's easy to register a complaint. You do it by email. You can do it by calling 311. You don't even have to give your name. That process is in place. So we are always training, always trying to sensitize officers how to deal with the public. And again, if there was an abuse of authority, if there's use of force that's inappropriate, discourtesy, offensive language, we want to know that. Going to make a register complaint through the civilian complaint board.
Inshallah, Bismillah, we're going to pray at 12:30, don't worry. Inshallah. We got that.
Last two questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum Jamia. We are very happy to receive you, Commissioner. May God bless you. Thank you for the good work that you're doing and make a continuation. Thank you for appointing our president, who we generally know and popularly known as Mr. Sidikawai. Thank you very much. One problem that we have is the communication gap. You start to link that communication gap by getting CDKY with you. That's the link. The second part, we are imams. I am Alhaji Ahmed Sheikh Jibril Kamara, the imam for Barakatul Islamiyya and also the chaplain of the United African Congress. If only you can bridge their gap for the imams, they can carry their white hats or their turbans, but they have no identification to be known as imams. If they are going to confront a policeman, for instance, his question, I am Imam Ahmed. Imam, I am he man too. You say, I am Al-Haji. Oh, you Al-Haji? I am pastor. So tell me, that language, Arabic language is a very wonderful language, but can be interpreted in 4 parts. For each word you have to pronounce it 4 times as 4 meanings. So if the policeman doesn't know Ahmed, Abdul, Abdullah, now he just make fun out of you. We know that. We have come across that several times. And for many times I have been walking sluggishly and carelessly in the street. I have been watching our brothers, how they are chased around, those who hawkers, those who are selling. They are chased around and they are bothered. I am asking you kindly to make sure that you make that communication gap. Your arms are really long enough, but you have your men that are working. You cannot do all the job, you alone. Somebody can help you.
Again, I think that's something that we can at least discuss. In terms of identification, we have a clergy liaison program that we urge people to join. There is a set number in each precinct. Maybe it's something we should look at in terms of increasing, but we don't want to be in a position of authorizing a religious position, I would say. However, if in fact that person has a relationship with the police department, then, you know, we certainly give them the verification. So that's something we can.
Say, Imam is showing he, as a member of the clergy liaison council, he carries an ID. You know, so again, I'm going to emphasize the importance of members of the association sitting with Imam Konate and myself so that we can begin to work these type of things out and establish the communication so we can get the training, bring you into the council, and that'll help resolve that problem. Let's take the last question, please. And if there are any questions, further questions we can ask.
I'm going to be brief. Thank you for having me, giving me the opportunity to ask a question. Thanks for coming here today, Mr. Kelly. My question is, are the police randomly, do they go through any kind of drug and alcohol testing as a police officer, and particularly at a shooting site, especially when there's a fatality involved? That's one. The other question I have is that, do you think the unwritten rule of having 20 summonses, I think it's like 20 a month that a police officer is supposed to write, don't you think that puts pressure on the community and that deteriorates the relationship between the community and the police department?
Officers do receive random, just as you said, random testing. Every uniform officer is subject to being randomly tested for drugs. Everyone is, in fact, randomly tested during their career. We do terminate officers. It's a small number. We do terminate them for use of drugs. Now, your question about at a we don't do that. We have a system in place where the commander, the duty captain, or someone above that person makes a determination as to whether or not that individual is fit to do. Now, if we were to change that in some way, shape, or form, that would undoubtedly have to be negotiated at the bargaining table. We cannot make those types of decisions unilaterally.
Well, that has to change.
Your last question again?
The officers being...
The summonses, well, I don't say that there is a hard and fast rule that you have to issue any amount of summonses in most commands, but there are productivity goals. You know, we are employers. Police officers are employees. We want them to do certain things. And you ride around and you see double parked cars, you know, obstructing traffic, see people going through red lights. I would say if you were giving out summonses today, just based on merit, you could give out 20 summonses in about an hour's time riding around. So I don't think, you know, productivity goals are any of themselves bad. We need traffic to flow in this city. It's important for commerce. And, you know, because an officer perhaps doesn't want to give out summonses, well, hey, it's a nature. It's part of the job. That's what we require them to do, to make certain that the commerce flows in the city, that people are not killed or injured in automobile accidents to the extent that we can affect that. So productivity goals in and of themselves are not a bad thing. And I have no problem with the commander setting out a goal. Now, whether or not someone is somehow penalized for that, or whatever, which allegations have had, that's another issue. But if you're working for me, yeah, I want you to produce a certain amount of work, whatever that command is, and whatever that particular command does. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think any boss in the world has some sort of criteria. Your employees don't tell you what they feel like.
Yeah, but what redress does a person have? If a person is, because sometimes, and this happens to me personally, is that a police officer gave me a ticket that wasn't even called for. He said I was riding my bike on the sidewalk, and I wasn't. I had my bike in my hand.
Yeah, that's the redress. I mean, and do you think you got the summons because you had some sort of quota?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I would submit that someone, you say you weren't doing it, riding a bike on the sidewalk is against the law.
Yeah, I know that.
But you weren't doing it.
And I wasn't doing it.
Okay. You plead not guilty.
I mean, that's the roar of it.
I would like to excuse myself for raising my voice in front of our fathers and brothers that are here. The reason to that is that a lot of time people in this country wonder why when there's community organizations, women never speak, and they consider that as a weakness in our culture. What I want to say is, it's just that we let ourselves be represented by our husbands and brothers, and most of the time what we need to discuss, we discuss it with them in the house, in the room, and when they come out, they raise that voice for us. That's number one. Number two is that, as Imam spoke, the relationship between husbands and wife in this community can be very complicated once we get to this country. So what we need to do, and it's a suggestion, is to educate the ladies in terms of how they do the transition between their country's culture and the culture here. So my question to the commissioner is if they are willing to have police officers, ladies or few men come in the community and have some workshops, have some training sessions where they tell the ladies what are their rights and how they can go by exercising those rights without hurting their husbands or their brothers. That transition needs to be made, and once they come in the community, people who went to school, like ladies who went to school, can be a liaison between the police and the ladies in the community. But you need to more specifically educate the ladies in terms of the culture in this country, and for that you need to come at work sessions and do some trainings and workshops. Thanks a lot. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Precisely that, to locate new communities, new immigrants to this country, and particularly as far as women are concerned, explain the laws and the rights that they have as being citizens here. Secondly, domestic violence is a big issue in the police department. We have aggressively addressed it. In every one of our precincts, we have domestic violence teams that go and they visit homes that there is an incident of domestic violence or perhaps a history of domestic violence. So we're very proactive in that regard. But as far as communication as to what rights people have and how they can communicate with us, that's really something that it has been done and will continue to be done by the new immigrants unit in our Community Affairs Bureau. So perhaps we can get together and after this meeting and you give us some suggestions as to how we can do that in a more effective manner.
Okay, listen in your earpiece.
We saw improvement today about the relationship between us and police department. We hope that inshallah and that goes inshallah forward easy. Because from here, inshallah, we know that we will be able, inshallah, to solve our problems, inshallah, between us and police department, and also our community.
We heard one of them. Can you give us your full name and your title?
My full name is Imam Sulaiman Konati. Imam of this Mosque, also the chairman of Association of African Imams, Deputy Amir, Vice President of Harlem Shura.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه به والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا